Hey, it's Matt Collins here from Platypus Digital, and I'm bringing you this brilliant Control R webinar on SEO and how charities and nonprofits can make the best of their online presence to get found more on Google search results. So for the next half an hour, I'm going to be taking you through the brilliant basics of SEO and give you an idea of what you can do to increase traffic from Google search results. Let's dive straight in. So what is SEO? So SEO is simply the process of getting your content to show up in search engine results pages. So SEO simply stands for Search Engine Optimization. And all it means is formatting your content or your website to make it more usable and more visible to Google. So that's simply getting the content on your website, those articles that you've got, those information pieces that are sitting on your website, and just making them show up higher in search results whenever people are Googling things. So it's a way, obviously, of driving traffic to your website, of getting your organization in front of potential fundraisers, potential donors, service users, anything you can think of, really. So what we're talking about here is, when we talk about search engines broadly, is Google. They've got about 88% of the search market. So obviously there's other search engines like Bing. Go back a few years and you're looking at more things like Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves. But these days, Google have really kind of cornered the market on search. So when we talk about search engine results pages, we're pretty much talking about Google search results pages almost exclusively, really, because that's where you're going to get the most impact. Why is SEO important? Okay, so for one, it's a really high quantity way of getting traffic to your website. There's over 5 billion searches a day that take place on Google worldwide. A huge number of people looking for information. So it's an amazing way of getting a really high quantity of traffic to your website. It's also a really good way of getting quality traffic to your website. So if you think about it, whenever someone searches for something on Google, they want the thing that they just searched for right now. If they look for charities to donate to, or animal charity to volunteer for, they're looking for that thing there and then. So that means they're in a really good state to actually be kind of recruited by that charity to make a difference to their cause. So you get a really high quality of traffic as well. If you're on something like social media or your emails, you might be in a different state of mind and trying to get something else done than what the organization wants. But if you searched for that thing, then you really want it there and then, really. Also, organic search, as it's known. So that's simply the process of Googling something and then clicking on a result that comes up naturally in Google search results pages and isn't one of the ads that you see at the top of the screen. That's usually the highest source of website traffic for a lot of websites. So you'll see usually in Google Analytics, this big blue part of the pie chart that represents organic search. That's the percentage of traffic to the website overall that came from people Googling things and clicking on the results that they found. So if you're able to make even incremental improvements in your SEO, then you'll find you get a really high quantity of traffic as a result, simply because there's just such a large number coming from that source already. So you'll find a bigger impact for your work than you might find in other areas. Couple of things to know about SEO, really. One is that there's actually no such thing as ranking #1 in Google. So that's a phrase you often see bandied about. That's, we need to be #1 on Google. We're going to be the #1 charity on Google. It's actually no such thing as that in a really sort of specific sense, because search engine results pages, so that's simply the page of results that you get whenever you put something into Google, are actually personalized. So if you frequently visit a couple of say news websites, say the Guardian or the Times or the New York Times or something like that, whenever you Google something, then Google knows that you go to those websites a lot and you kind of trust those sources, so it'll actually surface results from those websites higher than from other pages. So that means that, broadly speaking, everyone who searches something is going to have a slightly different experience based on their user behavior online. So there's no such thing as like ranking #1 in Google for absolutely everybody, because while there's going to be a lot of similarities, there's also a lot of differences between what people actually see when they Google something. Main thing as well to remember is that you need to be giving people what they want on your website rather than just what you have. It can be quite common for a charity to say, right, we've got this website, it's got all this content, and that's the way it is. It's not going to change. We're not adding any more content. We're not taking any away. We just want that to be more visible. We want more people to find it. So that's one of the things that you can do, obviously, and we'll come on to some ways that you can do that. But really, it's about giving people what they want and what they're actually searching for online. So the types of keywords that people might be searching for in relation to your charity or cause might not actually be the types of topics that you have content for at the moment. So the best thing to do there is not to, just shove what you've got down people's throats, but to try to create something that's actually more in line with what people are searching for. And the other main thing to remember is you're playing the long game with SEO. So it's when you make a change on your website that you think is going to make it more easily searchable and more easily discoverable on search engine results pages. Usually takes a while for that change to come through. So Google has sort of kind of automatic programs that are kind of scouring the internet for new content. Usually takes a while for them to find any changes that you've made, and the improvements can take a while to come through, like literally many months. So if you're going to make improvements in SEO, be prepared to do it for the long run. But in terms of return on investment, it's a really high performing channel because the work that you do tends to pay off in a quite a long-term sustained way. But be prepared for changes to take a while to make a difference. So if you remember nothing else from today, really, here's the three things to remember. Find out what topics or keywords that are bringing people to your site, and maybe even think of a few that you'd like people to come to your site for. Create great content using those topics and keywords, and then share that content. So really it's about having a think about what sorts of terms you think people might be searching for, creating really great content, content that stands out and is really interesting and inspiring or whatever it needs to be, but that is just really awesome content, and then just sharing that content as widely as you can. Those are the main things that you can do to make your website more discoverable on Google and to improve your SEO. We'll go into more details on the different types of SEO now. So just a little bit of jargon busting, because there's a bunch of jargon in SEO and there's a whole load of complicated, annoying, hard to remember terms. So here's the example of how Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, the UK charity, would appear in search engine results pages. So at the very top there, you've got what's known as the page title. It's simply the title of the page. That always appears at the top there. In this case, it's just the name of the organization because it's the homepage that's been returned in the search results. Underneath that, you've got the URL that you'll go to if you click on that result. So that's simply the address of the web page that's shown up in the search results pages. Then you've got a really important bit of text that's known as the meta description, and that's simply, it's kind of explanatory text underneath the page title. So if you think you've got the title of a page, underneath that, the meta description sort of describes what's on the page. Now we'll come to meta descriptions a little bit later on, but most pages generate meta descriptions automatically using the first bits of text on the page. Now what that can often lead to, because there's a character limit on meta descriptions in search results pages, is text being truncated halfway through, or some of the text that's pulled through automatically just looking a bit weird. So that's a really big missed opportunity, because the meta description is one of the things that people use to decide whether they're going to click through from the results page through to your website. So it's important that it looks right, and that it's a full sentence, and that it asks people to do something. Underneath that, you'll see site links. Now, these are kind of, for the most part, generated automatically by Google. They take some of the more popular pages on your website, and then they kind of put them as a sub-menu underneath the main result that you'll see above it. So these are kind of more popular deep links that they think the user might be interested in. So you don't need to worry too much about those. It's really the three bits at the top that are kind of more important. Now, there's three main types of SEO: on-page SEO, on-site SEO, and off-site SEO. So on-page SEO is simply things on your pages, like the text and the titles and some of the things that we saw there. They're the kind of in some ways, the focus of SEO, and what a lot of the work kind of that you can do sort of falls under those umbrellas. On-site SEO are the technical things on your site that affect how a search engine is going to index or see your site. So these are slightly more techie bits, and we won't be covering too many of those today because they are quite techie, and sometimes you need to be a developer to even understand what they are. I'm just giving you the kind of foundations here. And then off-site SEO is simply things that are away from your website that impact your ranking and search results pages, like links from other websites, most importantly. So if you have a really big news story and one of the high traffic organizations or newspapers, online newspapers, links to your website in a really sort of high traffic story, then Google will see that as a kind of vote for your page, and it's a vote from a high authority source. So they're more likely then to have your page kind of rank higher in the search results because it thinks, well, this really reputable organization, this really reputable website is linking to yours. That must mean that the website they're linking to is really good. So we're going to show it to more people. So asking people to link to you, especially high authority websites and domains, can make a big difference to your SEO, and that's known as off-site SEO because it kind of takes place off-site. So what are keywords? So keywords are simply the terms that people search for. So whenever someone goes on to Google, obviously they put something into that search box, and they can be single words, they can be several words. Even when they're several words, they're still known as keywords, even though it's kind of more of a phrase than a word. That's just one of the little quirks of how they name things. So you need to mention those keywords on pages if you want to show up when they're searched. That's really the most important thing to remember. Here's an example of us Googling free digital charity training. That's something that Control R will show up for, hopefully, at some point in the search results pages for that term. So if we want to show up for a term like that, we need to mention it in the page and in different places in the page if we can, in a natural way. But the first step before we can do any of that is to create a list of the keywords that we're going to use in our content. So actually sit down and have a think, what search terms do we want to show up for, and what search terms do we think we show up for already? So there's two main types of keywords. There are short tail keywords and long tail keywords. Short tail keywords are quite broad and much less specific, and tend to be shorter, i.e. have a smaller number of words. So something like dogs. When someone Googles dogs, they could be searching for any number of things. They might want to see pictures of dogs. They might be looking to adopt a dog. There really could be lots of different things that they're looking for when they search for a term like that. Now, long tail keywords, on the other hand, they're usually multiple words and are a bit more specific and niche. So something like find a Siberian Husky at Battersea Dogs Home, Windsor. It's really specific. They're saying what breed they're looking for. They're saying what organization they're looking for that breed from, and where the location that they're actually specifying actually is. So if you use long tail keywords, there tends to be less competition for them because the offering is much more specific. So, for example, if you're a cancer charity, it would be very difficult to target the term just cancer because there's so many different types and so many different types of things that people might be searching for when they look for a term like that. But if you're going to use a much more long tail keyword that's going to say a very specific type of cancer support in a specific type of location, you can rank much more highly for that keyword, partly because there's going to be less competition, and partly because it's much more likely that you have what the person is searching for. So generally, your good content is going to include keywords naturally, so don't stuff your pages full of them. So there is a kind of an old technique called keyword stuffing, whereby you mention your keywords as many times as you can in a page. Google's got wise to that, and it will actually penalize you if you try and do that. So when you come up with your keywords, you just need to mention them naturally in your content. Make sure you do mention them, but don't do it in a really unnatural way. So just sit and have a think about what do you think people Google to find your website now? There's a couple of different sources where you can find that out for yourself. But just have a think about, what keywords do you think people are going to search for when they find your website? Is it the name of the organization? Is it the type of work that you do? Is it the type of cause that you're a part of? What sort of terms do you think people are actually Googling to find your website now? Because you can create more content using those keywords to get more of it. But also think about what keywords you would like people to search for to find your site. So these might not be the keywords that are bringing people to your website right now. They may be the keywords that you want to target a bit more, you know, the type of traffic that you're looking for. So ideally create maybe a list of about 5 keywords that you're going to target for your work. And ideally they should be between sort of 2 to 5 words long, something like that. If it's shorter than 2 words, you know, just one word, then it's not likely to be specific enough to show up well in search results pages. If it's far too long, then it can get a bit too specific. So you want somewhere in the middle, really, something that's not too short tail, and not too long tail. And those are the keywords you're going to try and mention in different parts of your website. Now, when you're building a list of those keywords, there's different places that you can look for kind of inspiration. If you're feeling kind of techie, you can use something called the Google Search Console. You're able to then track the incoming searches for your site for the last 90 days. So it'll give you some information on what keywords people have searched for and then come to your site so you can get an idea of how people, what people are searching for to get to you now. You can look at Google Trends, which is a really great tool that Google have, whereby you can look at the pattern of broad searches over time. So you can put in a couple of the keywords that you're thinking of, and you can see if interest in that keyword has increased or decreased over the last number of years. And you can also use Google AdWords and look at which words are bringing you the most clicks in your Google Ad Grants account. So you'll get full reports on the keywords that are doing well in your Ad Grants account, whereas on Search Console you tend to get a more limited report. And you can use that information to just inform your strategy. Now, you don't necessarily want to use exactly the same keywords as you've got in your Google Ad Grants account, because that might not necessarily be complete. It just depends what campaigns that you've got going at that time. But all of these places are going to be kind of sources of inspiration and a place that's different places that you can draw on when you're creating the list of keywords that you're going to target in your content. So what is on-page SEO? So that's simply, as we said, the work that you can do on each page to improve your SEO. So how you do on-page SEO, very broadly speaking, is to use keywords in your page title and in your meta descriptions. So here's an example of a search for simply charity digital agency, which is something that Platypus Digital would show up in at some point in a lot of search results. Now, what happens when you search a keyword like charity digital agency is that when those keywords are mentioned in our page title and meta descriptions, they appear in bold. So that is a visual cue to the person who is searching that this result may well be very relevant to what they're looking for, because it actually features the keywords they just searched. So I've searched for charity digital agency, and in our meta description, we've got we're a London-based digital marketing agency that works with charities. Now, note that the word charities is in bold, but I've searched for charity at the top there. Google's algorithm is very smart, and it knows that when you search for charity, then you're probably interested in a page that mentions charities, plural. So anytime you're able to mention keywords in a natural way within your meta description and in the page title, then that's going to increase your click-through rate from search result pages to your website. More people are going to click on your website search result to get to your website. That's going to increase traffic, and it's going to crucially increase traffic from the people who really want what you have to offer. So a bit more meta descriptions. Here's 2 examples from a fictional charity called Peckham Animal Shelter that looks after animals without a home. So the first example, number 1, it has that automatically generated meta description that I mentioned before. So you'll see that it actually stops halfway through the sentence. It says we rehome lost, stray and abandoned animals, prioritizing their welfare while ... So it's actually kind of an incomplete sentence that isn't finished. And then number 2 is a better example of a meta description. So you'll see that it says Peckham Animal Shelter look after the welfare of animals, says what they do, and there's actually a call to action in the meta description. It actually says donate and help us save animals. So that's a really well written one. It's complete sentences, and it actually features a call to action encouraging the person who sees that search result to click through to the full website to find out more about what they can do and how they can help. Now, the page copy, that's simply the words on the page. So if you've got a web page that you're building, you've already created a page title, you've written a meta description, which is something that you can edit in your CMS, by the way, so your content management system. However you build your web pages, there'll be a section there for your meta description. Then the page copy is just the words on the page, nothing more complicated than that. And again, if you're able to write your page copy so that it includes those keywords, then you're going to rank higher in Google as a result. The other thing I look for is really well formatted content. So here's a good example from the British Heart Foundation's website. They've got nice headings on their web pages, which summarizes what each paragraph is about. They format their content so that there's lots of white space, and they do that by having short paragraphs, not big blocks of text, and also having bullet lists, as you'll see at the bottom there. Just makes the content really easy to read. Google notices how well formatted pages are, and it kind of gives you an extra vote whenever it sees well formatted pages, as well as pages that actually mention the keywords. So you just want to mention keywords naturally in the copy. So a good example might be Peckham Animal Shelter looks after the welfare of animals without a home. We rehome lost, stray and abandoned animals, prioritizing their welfare while in our care. Find out more about how you can adopt an animal. So it all sounds very natural, all very straightforward. A bad example then would be Peckham Animal Shelter are a local animal shelter where you can adopt an animal. We rehome lost, stray and abandoned animals. Visit us and adopt an animal. Adopt an animal at the nearest animal shelter near you. Can you hear how that just doesn't sound right? It just doesn't sound natural. It doesn't sound like a way that someone would actually speak to you if they were just telling you about an organization. And that's because this is keyword stuffing. So you'll see the keyword that we're trying to target in this fictional bad example is adopt an animal. And when we try and mention the phrase adopt an animal as many times as we can in the page copy, it sounds really weird. And Google's algorithm is clever enough to pick up on that and automatically give your website kind of a downvote essentially whenever you do it, because it knows you're trying to kind of game the system and not create content that people actually want to read, but create content that's going to, feature highly in search results. So you just want to use your keywords very naturally within your copy. Don't worry about mentioning them too many times. Now, other pieces of content that you might want to look at are things like alt tags. Now, alt tags are the text that describes images on a page. They're kind of like little labels that sit behind the image that display whenever the image, for whatever reason, doesn't load. So if the image can't load because of web connections, or if somebody is using a screen reader, for example, so it's obviously very important for accessibility. If someone is using a screen reader to read the content on a page, that screen reader obviously can't read an image on its own, so it reads the title, the alt tag that sits behind the page, behind the image. So you just need to make sure that your images have accurate descriptions. Now, whenever you upload an image from a camera or a smartphone or whatever, they tend to have automatically generated file names, and that tends to become the alt tag or the image title. So you just need to edit that so it describes the image and what it actually is. So here's a good example from British Heart Foundation again. So these images haven't loaded on this page, and you can see that the alt tag behind an image here is man typing on mobile phone, and then there's another one over to the right that says British BHF research strategy, and then another one underneath that says healthcare professionals. So if a screen reader sees that, it knows what that image is. The other good thing is that you can show up in Google image results. So whenever people search for that particular thing, then you can show up in image search results, and your image is indexed in the same way as your pages are. So it's just another way of showing up in the search results and getting your organization's content in front of more people. So what's on-site SEO? So that's simply adjusting certain elements and settings on your site to make it easier for Google to find it. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because it is super techy, and obviously that means it's harder to understand and harder to do anything about. Main things to say about on-site SEO, some things that help it anyway, are planning a clear architecture for your content with consistent URL structures. So some CMSs will create really funny looking URLs with really random words in them. Ideally, your URLs are just going to be really descriptive of the content that's on there. And you want your menus to have kind of a logical organization, essentially, so that anything about getting involved is in the getting involved section, and anything about news is in the news section. So it's just organized in a sensible way. So that would include having a logical top navigation and sub navigation menu. So whenever you hover over the kind of main menu options on a website, then it will give you some more kind of other pages that sit within that section. So just have a kind of logical organization of those. You can set up Google Analytics and track conversions. So conversions are the valuable actions that people can take on your site. If you have Google Analytics set up well and conversions set up, then those are the sorts of things that help your on-site SEO. And also set up and monitor a tool called Google Search Console. So we touched on that before. That will give you access to some of the more techie bits behind your website, and just help you to rank better if you're able to edit some of those settings. So again, kind of techie. If you're not super technical, then don't worry too much about the on-site SEO. Just focus on creating really great content that people want to read. Now, off-site SEO, as we said, that's simply increasing the number of websites that link to yours. So when Google sees other sites linking to your website, they think that your site must be good. They see those links as votes to your website, and it makes your content appear higher in search results after that. So as we said before, the higher the authority of the website that links to you, the bigger the votes that Google takes that as. So if you've got really high traffic, really high authority pages that lots of people have heard of, as we said, some of the big news websites or kind of other highly thought of websites, high traffic websites like that, then that will mean more than if a WordPress blog that was only created yesterday links to you. All of it's good, and if people are linking to you, that means that you're creating really useful, really interesting content that people want to read. And if you go back to the summary I mentioned at the start, if you kind of remember nothing else, then creating that really awesome content that people want to read is really all you need to do in a way. If you're able to think about what sort of keywords you want to target and then create really great content that matches those keywords, then those are the main things you need to do. And then offsite SEO hopefully is going to kind of come naturally as a result of that, because people like to link to really awesome content. Now, how do you get those links? So, I mean, there's no magic formula, really. It's not something that is as under your control as what you put on your website. You just need content that people want to link to. And if you don't have any content like that at the moment, then spend some time writing some. Get the team together, get everyone nice and creative, and get some post-it notes and write some content that people are just naturally going to want to link to. And then you can go ahead and do some outreach and ask maybe blogs, get onto listing websites in your area for whatever you have to offer, and just other sources of respected information, and just ask them to link to you. Now, they're not going to link to you if your content's really bad anyway, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you've got some really great content or downloads or anything like that, just send, have a look at the website, try to find a contact email address, drop them a nice email and say, hey, this is such and such from X charity. We've got this really great piece. We think your readers might be interested in it. If you're able to link to it, then that would be great. And the main thing you can do that's under your control for offsite SEO is to simply share your content on social media, because tweets show up in search results. So if you mention some keywords in your tweets and someone Googles that keyword, especially if it's recent content, then your tweets are going to show up in those search results. And while they don't link straight to your website, people will go into your Twitter feed. You might get clicks through to your website from there, and at worst, you might get a few new followers out of it as well. So Peckham Animal Shelters are our fictional charity. Their SEO plan, they might submit their website to websites like catchat.org or Adoption UK. They could also email local news outlets and local blogs with news about the shelter and just tell them what's happening so that they can print stories. They might even reach out to local photographers to start building a collection of cute animal photos to share. So they might share some pictures of the cats in the shelter. People love pictures of cats and dogs, really cute pictures. So the more pictures that you're sharing, the more people will actually come across the website, and who knows, some of them might even be interested in adopting one of the cats, having seen one of the pictures. So what you can do right now, try to think of 5 new content ideas to try out. So I think the main thing to get across is that great content will always, show up in search results one way or another, because people want to link to it and people want to share it and people want to read it. Try to make them different to what you've already got. You're going to have a blog on your website right now. You're going to have lots of pages on your website, and they do what they do, and they probably do it very well. But try to think of something that's just a bit more interesting, a bit more dramatic, a little little bit more fun, perhaps, try to make one of your ideas like a listicle, like you see on BuzzFeed. So you can see they use things like 10 cats that found their forever homes. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to make light of the content that you're writing about, but people do find those pieces of content and that kind of format of content very easy to digest. Whenever people know exactly how many things they're going to be reading and how much information they've got to get through, it actually makes them more likely to click on it in the first place. So when you're thinking of those new content ideas, just write the titles now. Like, just try to think of like 5 titles of pieces that you could write, and then go ahead and write the content later when you think that you might be on to something. Writing that content, creating a blog post or creating a new page on your website, it's more time consuming than just doing a tweet or even doing an email necessarily, but it's much more sustainable and much higher return on investment than those things, because once you send a tweet out or once you send an email out and it does its thing, it goes away very quickly, it goes away from people's attention. But if you have a piece of content on your website, that's going to show up in search results every day for a very long time. And because it's showing up in search results, it's showing up in front of people who want that thing. They want to take action, they want to volunteer, they want to donate, whatever it is they happen to be searching for. So it's a really high return kind of digital tactic to do. Now remember, in SEO, Goliath very often beats David. So the big boys very often beat the little boys when it comes to sharing content. So if you're a health charity, for example, you're going to find it very difficult to rank above sources like the NHS for certain search terms, because they've got a lot of content on their website, a lot of really high quality content. So it's going to be very hard to beat them and to rank higher for terms like that. But if David chooses his battles, he can beat Goliath. So what you'll find is that if you have nice long tail keywords, then you'll be able to rank higher than some of those websites because they simply aren't targeting them particularly. And remember, it's not about making people love your existing content. It's about making content that people love. Have a think about what people are actually searching for. Have a look and think about what people are likely to be interested in, and create content that they're going to want to read. And you have to rise above the noise, because there's so much stuff like that. There's so many blogs, there's so many websites that people can look for. Then you really have to create something that's either more interesting or more shocking, or just more valuable for the user to read than maybe you did have to 10 years ago or something like that. So really try to think, how can we cut through the noise? How can we make our content more interesting? Because that's what's going to show up higher in search results pages. So in summary, our top SEO tips: create a keyword list. Have a list in front of you of what keywords you think people might be searching for, or you'd like them to search for to get to your website. Plan interesting and unique content. So just have a think about what to write that's going to attract people's attention. Use the keywords from your keyword list in the page titles, in the meta descriptions, and in the page copy. Do it in a natural way, as we said. Don't stuff your keywords into the page in a weird way, but do mention them in those sections on your pages. Share that content on Twitter particularly. Share it as far as you can, because the more people see it, the more people are going to be interested in it and want to link to it. But Twitter in particular, because it now shows up in Google search results. And go out from your organization and ask other people to share that content as well. The more eyes your content gets on it, and the more people are searching for it and looking at it, then the more of a snowball effect you get, and the higher your content is going to rank in Google. So I think we've got time for a couple of questions. So I'm just going to come out of the presentation. Okay, so we've got a question of how does this relate to Facebook pages? So not directly is the answer to that. In that whenever you search for content on Google, then it doesn't usually show up content from Facebook pages, but anything that you can, whenever you share your content, make sure you're sharing it not only on Twitter, but on your Facebook pages as well. Ask other people to do the same thing, because Google keeps like the secret sauce of their algorithms, very much a guarded secret. But the strong belief is that they do use what's called social signals. If people are talking about your content and linking to it from social media, then they do take that as a vote for its quality, and they do ask people to, or they do get their content sort of ranking more highly in social media, because in search results pages from social media, because they do see that as kind of a vote as to its quality. So what do you think about experts employing people to do SEO for you? So presumably you mean sort of employing experts to do it for you. So there's an upside and a downside, as there is to employing any experts. The downside is obviously you have to pay money to do it. The upside is that because a lot of aspects of SEO are quite technical, then hiring people who are already well versed in those technical aspects can be a real time saver, and it can be a lot quicker and indeed even cheaper than learning how to do it yourself. But if you're a small charity and you follow some of the tips that I've mentioned in this webinar around creating great content that people want to read, then if you can't afford to bring in SEO agencies or freelancers, then you might not necessarily need to. If you've got the resources to write this really awesome content and share it in the way that I've described, then you won't necessarily need to bring in experts to do it for you. Okay, so any decent ways to see if you're on the first page for certain terms, and is that as important as people say it is? So the main way to see if you're on the first page really is to, if you use Chrome in particular, you can open an incognito window. So that's instead of a page which is tracking cookies and your search patterns in the past, it kind of is a sort of a clean slate. So it's the closest thing you're going to get to the kind of foundations search results, for want of a better term, that you can actually get. So if you go into Chrome, open an incognito window and search for the keyword that you're thinking of, then you'll get to sort of the closest you can get to kind of a clean result, the results that most people are going to see. It's very hard to kind of see what everyone's going to see, as I mentioned, because those search terms the search results pages are personalized. And is it as important as people say it is? Well, to be on the first page on Google, if you're able to do that, you're going to get way more traffic than if you're on the second pages or any pages after that. That's for sure. In terms of it being central to your organization's mission, there aren't any organizations whose charitable objectives are to appear on the first page of Google. That's for sure. You exist to change people's lives and to make the world a better place. So those are the things that are the most important. And also, okay, so one question is if you use a term on your website that people don't use so much regarding your cause. So for example, if you're a disability charity, there's going to be lots of terms that people use and people still Google that you decide as an organization not to use anymore. So that is a tricky one, and as an organization, you have to decide what your approach is going to be to that, because you may think that in terms of language, you want to be sort of leading the way on that and not following too much, because you could end up using what a lot of people might find offensive terms in your copy, just so that you can rank higher in Google. You just have to decide where you want to draw the line. There's going to be lots of searches for terms that you don't use anymore, and there's going to be lots of people who simply, for very good reasons, don't want to use that term as well. So you simply have to decide what you're going to use and what you're not going to use. Okay, that's all the time we've got today. So I hope you found that useful. If you've got any more questions, then please feel free to tweet us at platypusdigi. And hopefully you find this useful and you'll be able to go away and create great content that people want to read. And thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.